Fight response. The human honey badger. Meet the fight response.
Hi.
Your inner honey badger that wakes up every morning and chooses violence as the solution to literally everything. When your nervous system detects a threat, real or imagined, the fight response turns you into a human wrecking ball who's ready to argue with a stop sign if it looks at you wrong. People with a dominant fight response don't just get angry. They become emotional gladiators who treat every conflict like it's the final boss battle in a video game. Someone cuts you off in traffic? Time for war. Your barista gets your order wrong? Prepare for the most passive-aggressive interaction of their entire career. Your partner leaves dishes in the sink. Clearly, this is a personal attack that requires immediate retaliation. The fight response is like having a security system that's way too sensitive. A leaf falls on your emotional doorstep and suddenly sirens are blaring, lights are flashing, and you're ready to defend your territory against whatever imaginary threat just triggered your internal alarm system. These are the people who turn minor disagreements into full-scale arguments because their nervous system genuinely believes that backing down equals death. They're not trying to be difficult, are you? Their brain is literally convinced that if they don't fight back immediately, they'll be destroyed. In relationships, fight responders can be exhausting because they turn everything into a battle. You suggest watching a different movie, and suddenly you're in a heated debate about your fundamental compatibility as human beings. It's not personal, it's just their trauma response treating your Netflix preference like an act of war. The weirdest part is that fight responders often feel terrible after these episodes, but in the moment, fighting feels like the only way to survive. It's like being possessed by an angry ghost who's really bad at conflict resolution, but excellent at making everything worse. Flight response. The professional escape artist. The flight response is like having an internal Uber driver who's always ready to get you the hell out of any situation that feels remotely uncomfortable. These people have turned avoiding problems into an art form. They're basically emotional Houdinis who can disappear from difficult conversations faster than you can say, "We need to talk." When their nervous system detects danger, flight responders don't fight. They become professional escape artists. Awkward family dinner, suddenly they remember an urgent dentist appointment. Relationship conflict brewing, time to take a spontaneous road trip to nowhere. Boss wants to discuss their performance. Sorry, they just came down with a mysterious illness that definitely isn't fake. Flight responders are masters of the Irish goodbye. They'll vanish from parties, relationships, and even their own lives without warning. They're like emotional ghosts who haunt your contact list but never actually respond to texts because responding means engaging, and engaging feels dangerous. These are the people who change their phone numbers instead of having difficult conversations, move to new cities when their problems get too complex, and have perfected the art of being physically present, but emotionally in another time zone. The flight response turns life into a constant game of emotional hot potato. As soon as something gets uncomfortable, they pass it along to future them to deal with, except future them also has flight response, so nothing ever actually gets resolved. In relationships, flight responders are like cats. They want affection and connection. But the moment you try to discuss anything deeper than the weather, they suddenly remember they left something on in their other life and must leave immediately. Freeze response. The human statue. The freeze response is like your nervous system hitting the pause button on your entire existence. Except someone lost the remote and now you're stuck buffering indefinitely while life continues happening around you. When freeze responders encounter stress, they don't fight or run. They become human statues who've temporarily forgotten how to function. Imagine your brain is a computer and trauma is like someone spilling coffee on the keyboard. Everything just stops working. Freeze responders literally cannot move, speak, or think clearly when they're triggered. They become living proof that sometimes the best defense is no defense at all. These are the people who stand in grocery store aisles for 20 minutes, staring at cereal boxes because someone was rude to them at the checkout, and now they can't remember how to make decisions. They're like deer in headlights, except the headlights are daily life and the deer is their ability to function as a human being. In conflicts, freeze responders become conversational black holes. You're trying to have an argument, and they just stop. They're physically there, but mentally they've left the building, and now you're basically yelling at a very well-dressed mannequin who occasionally blinks. The freeze response is particularly cruel because it makes you feel like you're failing at being human. Everyone else seems capable of basic things like ordering food or making phone calls, while you're over here needing a full business day to recover from someone asking if you need a receipt. Freeze responders often get mistaken for being calm or zen, but really they're just temporarily broken. It's like their entire system has crashed and they're waiting for someone to turn them off and on again, except the someone is time and the off switch is hiding somewhere in their nervous system. Fawn Response, the people-pleasing machine. The Fawn Response is like being a human golden retriever who's convinced that if you're just nice enough, helpful enough, and agreeable enough, maybe nobody will hurt you. Fawn responders have turned people-pleasing into a survival strategy, except they've gotten so good at it that they've forgotten they're allowed to have their own opinions. When fawn responders detect threat, they don't fight, flee, or freeze. They become emotional contortionists who will twist themselves into whatever shape they think will make other people happy. They're like human Swiss Army knives, ready to be whatever tool the situation requires, even if it means completely abandoning their own needs. These are the people who apologize for existing, say sorry when other people bump into them, and would rather set themselves on fire than express a preference that might inconvenience someone else. They're constantly reading the room like they're studying for a final exam in How to Be Acceptable 101. Fawn responders have turned going with the flow into an extreme sport. They don't just avoid conflict, they preemptively solve problems that don't exist yet. They're like emotional firefighters who specialize in putting out fires before anyone even strikes a match. In relationships, fawn responders are exhausting in the most generous way possible. They'll agree to everything, anticipate your every need, and slowly disappear as individuals while trying to become whatever they think you want. It's like dating a very enthusiastic mirror who's forgotten they're supposed to have their own reflection. The tragic part is that fawn responders often end up in relationships with people who take advantage of their agreeability because predators can smell a people pleaser from 3 emotional miles away. They attract partners who love having a personal assistant instead of an equal, and then wonder why they feel invisible in their own lives. Hybrid fight-flight, the chaotic warrior. The hybrid fight-flight response is like having an internal GPS that can't decide between turn left at aggression and make a U-turn at avoidance. So it just keeps recalculating while you career wildly between starting fights and running away from them. These people are emotional pinballs who bounce between confrontation and escape without warning. One minute they're ready to throw hands over someone cutting in line, the next minute they're hiding in bathroom stalls to avoid making eye contact with their coworkers. It's like having 2 different trauma responses that take turns driving your nervous system, and they both have road rage. Fight-flight hybrids are the people who will angrily storm out of arguments, which is technically both fighting and fleeing simultaneously. They're like emotional tornadoes. They'll tear through a situation with dramatic intensity and then disappear completely, leaving everyone else to clean up the debris. These responders are masters of the aggressive exit. They don't just leave conversations, they perform elaborate departures complete with door slamming, dramatic declarations, and enough emotional devastation to power a small soap opera. Then they disappear for 3 weeks and pretend nothing happened. In relationships, fight-flight people are like dating a beautiful disaster. They'll passionately argue with you about something important, then ghost you for a week because the intimacy of conflict felt too overwhelming. They want connection, but they also want escape, preferably at the same time. The exhausting part is that you never know which response you're going to get. Will they stay and fight it out, or will they dramatically exit stage left? It's like relationship roulette where all the options are emotionally intense and none of them involve actually resolving anything. Freeze-fawn combo, the paralyzed people-pleaser. The freeze-fawn combination is like being a deer in headlights who's also desperately trying to make the headlights feel better about the situation. These people respond to stress by simultaneously shutting down completely while also frantically trying to fix everything for everyone else, which is as exhausting as it sounds. When freeze-fawn responders get triggered, they become human contradictions. Their body freezes, but their mouth keeps apologizing for things that aren't their fault. They can't move or think clearly, but they're still somehow managing to ask if you need anything and whether you're comfortable with the current temperature. These are the people who will sit in uncomfortable situations for hours, completely dissociated and miserable, but still smiling and nodding because they don't want to inconvenience anyone by expressing discomfort. They're like emotional hostages who are grateful for the experience and hope their captors are having a nice day. In conflicts, freeze-fawn people become broken records stuck on, "I'm sorry, you're right, whatever you want." They're not actually engaged in the conversation. They're just running their people-pleasing software while their actual consciousness has left the building for self-preservation. The freeze-fawn combo is particularly cruel because it makes you feel responsible for everyone else's emotions while being completely unable to access your own. It's like being an emotional support person for the world while slowly disappearing as an individual. These responders often end up in situations where they're simultaneously overwhelmed and overgiving. They can't process their own stress, but they're still trying to manage everyone else's feelings. It's like being a broken therapist who can't stop working even though their own system has crashed. Trauma bonding, the Stockholm Syndrome effect. Trauma bonding is like your nervous system developing Stockholm Syndrome with the exact people and situations that hurt you most. It's the psychological equivalent of dating your emotional kidnapper and then wondering why you can't leave even though you're clearly miserable. This isn't regular bonding. This is premium, industrial-strength attachment that forms when your brain gets confused about the difference between intensity and intimacy. Your nervous system mistakes drama for love, chaos for passion, and emotional whiplash for deep connection. Trauma bonding happens when someone alternates between hurting you and comforting you, creating an addictive cycle that hijacks your reward system. It's like being in an abusive relationship with a slot machine. The intermittent reinforcement makes you believe that maybe this time will be different. Maybe this time you'll hit the emotional jackpot. These bonds are stronger than healthy relationships because they're forged in crisis. When someone hurts you and then provides relief from that hurt, your brain gets confused and thinks they saved you, conveniently forgetting that they also caused the problem in the first place. People with trauma bonds often find healthy relationships boring because they've become addicted to emotional chaos. Normal love feels flat compared to the intensity of constantly wondering if your partner loves you or hates you. It's like going from emotional cocaine to emotional chamomile tea. Technically better for you, but way less exciting. The cruel irony is that trauma bonding feels like the deepest love you've ever experienced, when, really, it's just your nervous system being held hostage by someone who learned how to manipulate your stress responses. You're not in love, you're in survival mode with romantic background music. Emotional flashbacks, the time travel nightmare. Emotional flashbacks are like having a time machine in your nervous system that only travels to the worst moments of your past, and the destination is always surprise. Unlike regular flashbacks where you see images or remember events, emotional flashbacks just dump you back into feeling exactly like you did during your worst experiences, without any context clues about why. One minute you're a functioning adult buying groceries. The next minute, you're flooded with the exact emotional state of being a terrified child, except you have no idea why you suddenly feel like the world is ending in aisle 7 next to the organic ketchup. Emotional flashbacks are particularly evil because they don't come with helpful labels like, "Warning, you are now experiencing feelings from 1987. They just hit you with a tsunami of inexplicable emotions that feel completely real and current, even though they're actually historical reenactments your nervous system is performing without your permission. These flashbacks can be triggered by anything: a tone of voice, a smell, a facial expression, the way someone breathes. Your brain has kept detailed records of every moment you felt unsafe, and now it uses that database to surprise you with full-body recreations of past terror whenever it detects similar environmental conditions. The worst part is that emotional flashbacks make you feel crazy because the emotions are completely disproportionate to whatever's happening in the present. You're crying in your car because your coworker used a slightly impatient tone, and you can't explain to anyone, including yourself, why this feels like a life or death situation. People experiencing emotional flashbacks often think they're overreacting or being dramatic, when really they're just stuck in emotional time travel. They're not crying about the present moment, they're crying about every similar moment from their past all at once in surround sound. Complex PTSD response. The full system shutdown. Complex PTSD is like having regular PTSD, but somebody upgraded it to the premium package with extra features nobody asked for. Instead of being traumatized by one specific event, complex PTSD develops from prolonged, repeated trauma, usually in childhood, creating a nervous system that's basically held together with emotional duct tape and pure stubbornness. People with complex PTSD don't just have flashbacks. They have entire alternate realities that their brain switches to when triggered. It's like having multiple operating systems running simultaneously, and none of them are communicating with each other about what's actually happening in the present moment. Complex PTSD responses can include all the other trauma responses happening at once. You might fight, flee, freeze, and fawn within the same conversation, creating a full-spectrum trauma response that confuses everyone, including yourself. It's like your nervous system is having an emotional seizure where all the protective mechanisms activate simultaneously. These responses often include emotional dysregulation that makes normal feelings feel like emotional tsunamis. A minor disappointment becomes devastating grief, slight irritation becomes burning rage, and normal human affection becomes overwhelming terror. It's like having an emotional amplifier that's permanently stuck on 11. Complex PTSD also comes with a special bonus feature called dissociation, where your consciousness just leaves. You're physically present, but mentally you've evacuated to a safer dimension, leaving your body to handle whatever's happening while you're gone. It's like your brain's emergency exit strategy for when reality becomes too overwhelming to process. The really fun part is that complex PTSD makes you feel like you're broken at a fundamental level, when really you're just a person whose nervous system learned to survive impossible situations. You're not damaged. You're a masterpiece of human adaptation to environments that shouldn't exist. The conclusion: your survival system finally makes sense. So there you have it. Every trauma response explained, from the honey badger fighters to the time-traveling flashback experts and everyone in between. Understanding your trauma response is like finally getting the instruction manual for a security system that's been randomly going off in your house for years. The beautiful thing about learning about trauma responses is realizing that you're not broken, crazy, or overreacting. You're just a human being whose nervous system learned to survive in situations that required extreme measures. Whether you fight, flee, freeze, fawn, or do some combination of all four, your responses made perfect sense given what you experienced. These responses aren't character flaws. They're evidence of your incredible capacity to adapt and survive. Your nervous system created these strategies to keep you alive when you were vulnerable, and they worked. The fact that they're not particularly helpful in your current adult life doesn't mean they were wrong. It just means it's time for some updates. The plot twist that trauma therapists love to reveal is that these responses can be changed. Your nervous system is remarkably adaptable. The same flexibility that created these responses can also help you develop new ones. It takes time, patience, and probably some good therapy, but you can literally reprogram your survival strategies. Whether you're the person who turns every minor inconvenience into World War III, or the person who disappears the moment things get real, or the person who freezes like a deer in headlights while frantically apologizing to the headlights, remember that awareness is the first step toward healing. Your trauma responses might explain why you react the way you do, but they don't have to control how you respond forever. With enough self-compassion, good support, and the willingness to feel awkward while you learn new ways of being in the world, you can absolutely create a life where your nervous system feels safe enough to relax. And hey, Now you have something way more interesting to talk about than the weather. So what's your dominant trauma response? Is definitely a conversation starter that'll separate the emotionally aware from the people who think therapy is just expensive complaining. If this video helped you understand why you turn into a completely different species when someone raises their voice slightly, smash that like button, subscribe for more psychology that'll make you question everything about your survival strategies, and drop a comment letting me know which trauma response describes your life perfectly. Trust me, we've all got at least 3 of these running simultaneously, and now we finally know why.